Hey, and welcome back. Today we're going to be using Figma to create our very own grid. Figma is a pretty powerful and flexible tool when you're working with grids, and there's so much you can do because of the way you can nest frames and styles and constraints. So let's jump in so I can show you what we can do here. So let's utilize the frame. Now this is super cool. We're going to create our own grid with a base unit of 6. So we're keeping our base unit in mind at all times. So I'm going to press F. And over here, I have a bunch of grids I could choose from. I'm just going to pick a standard grid. This one looks good. Got MacBook right there. And let's just name it. So Command R for quick shortcut. So our grid, love it. Very original name. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to select our frame and we're going to go over here. And we're going to go to Layout Grid. We're going to press the plus sign, and automatically when you press the plus sign, you get this grid based off 10 pixels. So if you zoom in, there are 10 pixels. Now we don't want to use this. What we do want to use is we want to go over to here and we want to select columns. There we go. Now here we can kind of set the amount of columns, the gutter, the margin, any other types of settings that you really want. You can make your grid blue. You can make it whatever color you want. Typically red is what I set it to, but it's helpful if you have other grids laying on top of each other. What we're going to do is we're going to set the number of columns to 12. We did. Let's just exit out of that. So here we go. We got 12 columns here. We're going to set the gutter to 16 and the margin to 16. And we're going to keep this to stretch. So that way it stretches when we move it. Perfect. There's our grid. Let's take a look. See, it stretches as we move it. Ooh, that's a little confusing. There we go. Now, another cool thing is that in Figma, we can start to apply grids even to frames within our layout. So that means we can apply it not only to the main frame that dictates our screen size, but we'll be able to apply it to individual containers or even like components like UI elements. So let's make like a card element. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press F for another frame. Make this right here. And what I'm going to do is the same exact thing. I'm going to create a layout grid. So go over here, select columns, and this is a good case where you would want to probably change the color because it gets a little confusing. Sometimes I like to even like make the opacity just a little bit darker. So I would set it on 20 there. Now this would be a container and you could set it to whatever you'd like. Typically you don't want to like have 12 columns on this. But there we go. And we can set like even a margin of 16 if we wanted to, but let's scale down the amount of columns we have. So over here we have 4. I think that's okay for now. Like I said, nothing's really set in stone, but let's set that grid. So there's our grid. It's on our elements over here. You can see it's attached to that grid. Now, this is pretty cool, right? Like you could create cards and those cards could be really uniform in style based off of your grid within a grid, and they'll be able to scale. Now, oh, see, it's not fluid. And let's get into constraints and I'll teach you how that works. So right now they're sitting on the grid. Now the constraints are much more interesting. So you remember like when we were trying to do fluid layouts like we were just doing right now, and things weren't working as we expected to or as we saw before. Now, Figma allows you to apply a thing called constraints to a frame. Let's select this frame over here, perfect. And these are constraints on the right side. This will help you control how an element resizes in relation to the actual parent frame. So this is our parent frame, and this is going to resize in relation to that. So this card element, what we're going to do is we're going to just we're going to shift and click on here, and you'll see that it's left and right now. So that means that when I resize my parent frame, it's going to change with that. Just so you can better see it, what we're going to do is we're just going to set that to like gray, and we can turn off grids by pressing, for Mac users, Control G. So I'm going to take off that grid. I'm going to create these ones and give them a fill. We could just do something like that. So this one is the one with the constraints. These ones do not have constraints. And you'll notice that that stays perfectly on our grid while the others don't. You can even do this for the top and bottom as well. So you'll notice that if I'm going to do this, this will scale top to bottom with my parent frame. The others won't do that. They'll only move with the top because the constraint they have is top and left. And they'll only move with the left because that is what the constraint is set to. So applying these constraints allow us to maintain a fixed layout based off of our columns and gutters. Please, for the sake of your own sanity, you should save your grids as styles. That way we aren't constantly repeating ourselves when we create a new frame. Also, it keeps things neat in one place, so when you need to apply it to a frame, you just select a style easily like this. This is where you would select your style. We don't have any styles set here, and let's just go and create one quick. So let's just delete these cards. This is our 12 column standard grid. And what we're going to do is we're going to click that style button. We are going to click create a style, and we're going to name it. Naming conventions in Figma are really cool as well. So what we're going to do here is this is how you would set and break up your grid styles. I'm going to just write layout grid, and I'm going to separate it like that. And the actual name of the grid, I'm going to call it my 12 call. And I'm going to create that style. There it is. And you saw that title that I gave it is layout grid. We can even create another grid here. We're going to create a baseline grid. We set that to auto, to the top. And like I said, I like using a 4 pixel grid here. No offset, and the gutters will be 4. And you can combine grids. I can create another column grid on top of this. So set my margin to 16, set my gutter to 16 pixels. If you want, you can set the color just to differentiate between both of them. And you can save these two as a style as well, right there. And we can just name these combined, and we can call it 12 column layout and 4 pixel baseline. And there we go. So they're under combined, and you can name them any which way you want. We'll get into that much more later, but this is just a perfect way to like create a new frame. Go into my layout grid, apply a style, change styles easily. So please do that for your own sanity. It'll help you in the future just kind of not have to recreate the wheel over and over again, because it's not really fun creating the grid, but just to apply it easily to your layout. And another great thing is if I want to edit that grid, I can do so. I can go right here, edit the colors, and it's going to edit everywhere else. So what you do is you just press this, you click onto this edit style section, and you can edit it. You can even give it a description like really awesome grid. And there you go. That is how you make a grid in Figma.